Tarazan, have you ever wondered why people wear beadwork? Most especially gifted people. Is there a specific reason, and do the colors mean anything really? Or do we just wear them because they look cool, or that's a way of us expressing ourselves? Well, today you're about to find out what exactly it means and why beadwork is worn. Thokozani, today you're about to learn about really, really exciting things, and of course, I'm your host with the most, and welcome to Ezasendumbeni. Well, this platform was purely created so that I could be able to share very, very basic information of Ubungoma and about the traditional healing spectrum. It's not supposed to be a very detailed platform about Ubungoma. If anything, this is supposed to be teaching you the very basic work. At the end of the day, you need to do the work. You need to go do the research about what's going on with you specifically, and don't just take my word for what it is. Challenge me. I don't mind being wrong. If anything, I know what I know based on the background I have, and because of my ethnic group. I am a Bedi Shona girl, so at the end of the day, I will only share and advise on things that I know of. Otherwise, go onto the net, do search, do write blogs, do write posts, do share on every platform that you have at your disposal, and be able to teach us. Like, we are here to learn from each other. I may be a healer for X amount of years, but at the end of the day, we all learn on the job, So you can't be learning from YouTube videos alone, but you have to actually go into these spaces, do learn about it, create environments where you can create the conversations, and see what else it is that you can learn outside of what it is that I've shared on my platform. But on that note, welcome. Today on Ezasendumbeni, we talk about ubuhlalu, beadwork, dipeta, dibaga, known popularly by other cultures and other languages. What are beadwork made for? Like, why do we wear them? Who wears them? So today we're going to unpack those issues and really, really get into the crux as to why are these things so significant for us, and what kind of changes do they provide? Are they actually healing us? Do they provide any other job other than just to make us look pretty and look amazing and unique and special? But what else is there to this particular conversation? Well, on a starting note, I'm going to talk about the simple beadwork that I'm wearing. I got to get this beadwork when I became a sangoma, when I got initiated. So this beadwork is purely made from white and red glass beads. Some people call them bone beads, but in essence they're glass. When it's hot, they're extremely hot. When it's cold, they're extremely cold, so they adapt with the weather. And I got to get this particular beadwork because I was able to graduate from my training, and they differ from every single group impandi that you will come out of or get initiated from. For instance, my group then in essence use the snake skin, as pockets that carry immunity that are supposed to strengthen and protect me no matter where I go, as well as to help me be able to catch on to my bones easier. So there's different purposes as for why bones and beadwork rather are made, because there's maybe ubuhlalo bokhola, ubuhlalo bokpolisa boklapha, to heal you. So we're about to go into that and unpack the different issues as to why do we wear beadwork, and what's the reason behind. What are beadwork used for? Well, we use beadwork firstly to identify ourselves, to differentiate ourselves, who and what we are. On that note, we also wear specific beadwork to represent specific types of people that we are. Sometimes it has nothing to do with even us as individuals, but more the work that we do. For instance, if I have Umunguni as a spirit in terms of Ilozilok Twasa, who uses bones for divination, I would wear red and white beads. If I have Itlozilo Mundao, I would wear white beads and blue and white beads. The blue would be like a single line across the beadwork, which will be the representation of that particular ancestor. There's also other beadwork for different kinds of healers. For instance, Istunya, especially Istunya Subporofito, becoming a prophet. For that particular beadwork, it comes in various amounts of colors. Popularly, it would be the yellow, the blue, the red, the white. Those would be very expressive colors for someone who's undergoing training for prophecy. So then, who wears beads? Who wears the beadwork? Beadwork can be worn by a trainee, can also be worn by a graduate. It can also be worn by a patient who's struggling with any particular pains or ailments in a particular part of the body. So, a trainee, when they start off, they usually wear single white lines on their head, their neck, their elbows, their wrists, and their ankles. Those are more important parts where you would actually put on beadwork for a trainee. For a graduate, any of those places do suffice. It's more of the more you grow, the older you grow into your work, the more your ancestors dictate to you on a personal level, outside of you being a trainee who's then guided and advised by Ukobela Wako, your teacher, on which part of the body then these things are required. I particularly I'm not really fussy in terms of beadwork, because sometimes you may find that I have patients who I am almost preparing for an initiation process, almost the psychology behind Uktwasa, as well as going through to identify what kind of ancestors this person has. And while we are going through that process with this particular person, they will tell me, Koko, I had a dream and I had such and such particular beadwork and it was in a such and such a place. And what I'll do, I will beadwork and I will string together, I will thread together a band of beadwork for this particular individual based on the dream that this particular person had. My issue with that would be, my reasoning rather around that would be that sometimes you don't necessarily have to wait to get into initiation school for you to start doing and practicing in the role that you are in. Sometimes there are people that don't go into initiation school to become izangoma and to actually heed their callings. Some people are going to be taught purely by their ancestors on their own. They're just going to come to you as the sangoma or the person who's helping them from time to time to help them get up a certain level, almost like to level up every time to reach a certain area where they are supposed to thrive. And all you're supposed to do is administer the help for that particular situation, but for that particular story. And then it moves on back to one-on-one teaching with their ancestors in their homes, in their dreams, based on the kind of ancestors they have. I will go into more detail in other videos explaining what kind of spirits we have as gifted people. There are blood spirits, there are also water-based spirits. So we'll talk about that in another video. But for this particular video, talking about beadwork, it's important for you to identify what kind of ancestors you have before you even start the initiation process, because in essence, zabe uthwasabani, who will you be going through the initiation process for? In the bead space, there are different kinds of pieces that I used, which don't necessarily count as beadwork, but also in the Nguni culture or the Nguni space, we use quite a lot of shells. Shells, you find them in our bones that we read you from. We find them in part of the pieces we wear in our dress code. And for instance, this particular beadwork is made for umundao, so these would be ring shells, cowrie shells. I don't know how to pronounce it really, but these are shells that you would find from the ocean, obviously, and it creates a band, because here I've got two of them. They're just tied together. I've got two of them, and the shorter one would be for the head, and then the longer one would be for across the body. Right? Usually these are used for one particular ancestor, being umundao. Umundao is the one that we use the white and the blue colors for, picture displayed. And then there's also the plastic bead. The plastic beads are a lot lighter. It's easier to manage these beads, especially if you are trancing and you're dancing and you are in the moment in terms of edlozini. So you would use the plastic bead because it's less heavier and it's easier to mention. Imagine if le Shaba leli was made in glass bead. This would be a very heavy item. Already it's hanging on a rod, right? And usually it's all the pieces that are used in this particular item would have to be specific to ubungoma. You can't just get a wooden broom, stick to use as your handle, etc. It would have to be imiti. So as much as you're seeing this stick here, there's a different kind of stick within. This is just a handle for me to hold onto. But in essence, the meaty is inside and wrapped inside the shaba. So the shaba is going to be made of a hair. There's different kinds of animal hair that is used for this particular item I'm holding, a shaba. And this would be for the spirit of Munguni, right? Meaning itwasa that you have, idlozi that you have that is of a blood spirit. So this particular one would have to be made of plastic, because if not, this item would be incredibly heavy, right? But as you can see, it's quite intricate in how it's made, right? Takes quite a long time to make too if you're not experienced. And then there's the beadwork that you have for the same blood spirit, umunguni, and this is the one that you get in essence mase utwasa, right? So you're going to go through various kinds of these kind of beadwork that you're going to get at different times of your initiation. Some you might get through different phases, because there are different phases in your initiation. You don't just come in and then you graduate. You have to almost level up every time so that you learn more about the spirits that actually is within you in terms of the ancestor that you are doing this particular ceremony for. This is a mix of glass and plastic beads. So here would be where the bone glass beads are. This would be the most intricate part, because again, these little pockets are carrying imiti inside that are supposed to protect us from, even when we're trancing, when we're working. This is very important. It helps draw the spirit closer to you. Whenever you're dressed in these, Ilozi already knows that you are wanting to channel, you are wanting to engage and be within your work, right? So there's neck ones too. These are the short little ones, and they would fill up your neck, and this is would be the short ones, and the longer ends would then be the plastic side, because again, if there was all glass, this thing would be really heavy. Now imagine if I'm wearing all these items here across my body. I'm petit shoba, I'm wearing my skirt in dindani, and everything is literally made from glass beads. It would be a very heavy exercise for me to do, and I won't be as light on my feet as I should be. So yes, and then again, the little pockets. The little pockets will be made from glass beads, right? So the different kind of designs is just a way of how you decorate them, but also the choices in your beadwork would be largely based on impande that you are graduating from. So obviously you can see there was no big differentiator from the group that I graduated from. And in that essence, there maybe could be like a pink or a green or blue specific to that impande. My impande is not particular fussy on such things, so they remained with the most basic colors that are more directed to the spirit that is with me, being Isinguni, a blood ancestor. And that's why the red is there. It speaks to the fact that this is a blood spirit. So that's why the blood has to be there to actually represent and touch onto. It's easy to identify, even if I'm trancing, what kind of ancestor am I doing this particular ceremony? What am I trying to achieve at that moment? Which ancestor have I channeled and brought forth by just looking at the beadwork I'm wearing? So, speaking about beadwork, it's very difficult for me to wear beadwork, for instance. I can wear beadwork because this particular one has got it has a button, so it's easy for me to put it on and off as and when I choose to. But whenever I put very permanent beadwork on my body, for instance, one that is just a complete string without these pockets, that one can never leave my body. Whenever I wake up from my sleep, I find that my beads are shattered and they're scattered all over my bed. That to me is already a sign that no, lady, we do not want beadwork that is permanent on your body. We want you to be able to take it out, right? And it's specific to me. It doesn't have to be the same thing for you. So again, allow Idlozi lakho to dictate and advise what it is that's needed. I used to have pain on my wrist for the longest time that couldn't go away no matter what kind of massaging techniques, stretching techniques, exercise techniques I would try and do. But I realized that only when I put in ubuhlalo on my wrist will it go away. And that's in essence what happened. So beadwork, it's there to fulfill a certain purpose, a certain need. Because you don't just put on beadwork to make yourself pretty. I feel you're already adorned enough, and lesedisangoma Lelo wants to show you that it is a different kind of dlozi in comparison to the other kind that you have. For instance, let's say I have amadlozi I5. I've got 5 ancestors that want me to carry out their work. Obviously, the ranking will not be the same. There's going to be the one that's most dominant and the one that's the least dominant, right? So in their rankings, along those 5, maybe number 3 is very vocal in terms of it comes with a spirit of uprofit, and it wants in be like metal braces around my wrist to speak to that particular side of my ancestor. Then I would have to get that done. These particular beadwork, or rather bracelets that I'm wearing here, is a gold I don't know if it's a copper bracelet or gold one, but I use this one because I've got this grandfather who used to wear it a lot, and it would provide quite a lot of relief outside of just it being on my wrist. It would also help in terms of like diabetes, joint movement issues. I forgot the particular wording themselves, but it would help a lot. But this connects me to a particular ancestor of mine. This one was given to me by my teacher, who is a big fan of the Venda culture. And if you know your cultures and your languages, then you know that these are worn largely by people who are of like Venda language or culture, and they would fill up their whole wrists on both sides, and you could barely see what's on their wrists because they wear them so much. So these are the only things that work for me. But if I have another ancestor who says wear a string of yellow beads around your waist, then I will have to also wear these beads around my waist. Throughout all of these, you're seeing the pictures to show that there's different kinds of people, there's different kinds of callings, there's different kind of ancestors. You have to be honest with yourself and follow what it is that's being shown to you. Don't try and be a MacGyver or see your neighbor and want to copy and mimic what they do. It's not going to help you. You don't know what they're trying to solve for with those things that they have on their person. I, for instance, have 3 beads on my waist, Those have been there for like 1.5 years now. I think that's the longest set of beads that my body has ever taken and has not actually thrown away. I think it's because of the secrecy and the silence behind those particular beads. And if I was to maybe show you these lines of beads here, you see, I have the solid blue and white, I have the white and the red, and then I have the solid white and red. So these are 3 different bands that are all individual. They are all individually on my person, and they speak to me very differently, and they speak to 3 different kinds of ancestors that I have and 3 kinds of talents that I have. So it's very specific to me. Don't try and copy. And those things serve for different things. Waist beads are popularly made by mothers for their daughters, especially when they start having their first period, almost like to welcome them into womanhood. It's a celebration of fertility, femininity, womanhood. It's a celebration of the fact that now you can reproduce, like you've grown into yourself. And sometimes you wear waist beads for protection. It's for a number of reasons, so again, don't just do something because it looks cool. Find out the importance of such things. And even on your waist beads, there's no reason for you not to put coal rings, shells on your your cowrie shells on your waist beads, any particular piece that speaks to you. Other people put feathers and etc. for their adornment. So follow whatever it is that you're advised and you're shown, and then you'll be able to have a very successful experience with your beadwork. I'm still having to identify my relationship with beadwork, because I keep going through different phases. The person I am now was certainly not the same person I was 12 months ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So, as part of your growth and as part of your evolution in your work, allow yourself to shift and change. You are not a tree, you're not stuck, you're not a building, you're not just already erected and there's no changes that can happen to you. Form, transition, go with the flow of what it is that you're being shown. Learn the purpose behind the teachings of why you're being shown specific things. Sometimes you may speak to different kind of cultures that you're not aware that you're actually born into or your lineage is from, but you only see it through dreams, and you're like, but why do I have vendor inspired beads in my dreams? But you didn't know that your great grandfather, the head of the actual